In this video, we'll learn how to download and install Python in your local computer and also try to use Colab to compile the Python code. These are two different platforms. The installation in your local computer is for the case that sometimes you will need to run multiple files at the same time and also prepare the files to run on a cluster. For example, the VSCode cluster machines on campus. So this first thing is about the download. In your browser, simply search Python download and you will see the screen like shown here. And I'm going to click on this download Python, but the first entry there, and your own computer platform's with operating system specific version will show up here. In my case, it's Windows. I would click on this one to install. After installing this one, then you will have it in your local computer. Some of these recent versions of the Python would allow more of the recent development of advanced such as the AI stuff in there. Much older version, for example, Python 3.6 or before, you might have trouble to run the advanced model such as the BERT model. You don't have to be the most recent version, like this one says 3.11. It's okay to be like 3.9, 3.10, but you don't have to be most recent, but you don't want it to be too outdated either. So download and double click to install that. After you install the Python, oh, sorry, let me try to do that over here just so that you see. During the installation, there's something important. That's about the this permission and what's the right of that. Let me first save that so that I can install and show you. Okay, so that's my downloaded file, and double click that, it will run this for me. And here you see the install now and customize installation. What is important here is this one, the add Python exe to the path. Without this one, later on you will have a lot of trouble for some of the packages. Okay, so click on add python.exe to path and then select the install now. Once finished installing, then the next thing we would like to do is to download and install the VS Code. VS Code is a convenient platform for editing and compiling Python, and you could actually use it for some other languages, such as, for example, Julia, Zerobi. Those are all fine. After this one install, I will show you. Okay, while that thing is installing, first you in the browser, you can type a VS Code here, like a VS Code. It's for the Visual Studio Code. So in here, you see I have this VS Code as the first entry, and click on the download here. And it shows that for different operating system, choose the one suitable for your operating system. In my case, it would be the Windows 10 and the Windows 11. And there are these different versions of that. If you're not sure which one to install, like you can just click on this one. But if you are clear which one to install, like in my case, for example, my operating system is the Windows 10 and 64-bit, so I could choose x64 here. So after you download, install it. Okay. back to the setup was successful. Okay, I'll close that. So that Python installation was done. And the next thing is to test whether that Python was installed successfully or not. In my screen, what I need is let me see, command window. So in this case, I just directly clicked on this black, which is the command window. If you don't see it in yours, in your search bar here, type CMD, and that'll give us the command window. So for the command window here, when it's come out, you type Python, and in this case, what I see mine is Python 3.9. That was the previous version that I installed. And if you only have one version installed and successfully installed the Python, will show up here. I guess in my case, unless I restart the computer, it's showing as my old one. Okay, so if you see that this Python is able to be invoked and start, then it's ready. For example, you can type things, simple things. For example, the calculation can be done directly, or you can also define variables and so on. But this command line is only for these very simple things, line by line. We're not going to use this one for the purpose of running chunks of code. So I will exit that. Instead, what's the next thing we want to do is this VS Code. For the VS Code, once you have downloaded and installed, it will show up like this one. This is the VS Code. For the VS Code, when we try to use it, there are a couple of things we need to do. Just a second. One thing that we need to do is to specify, okay, before I try to do anything here, just look at the left-hand side, okay? This left-hand side, this part is like the file explorer. You click on that, you will see that the folder being set. When you just open it, you will not have any folder, so you can open a folder. So how do you open a folder here? Let me see. In my case, okay, it's from here, and then you click on File, and then click on either any of the file or folder. But I suggested to open a folder. Sorry, I accidentally clicked on something. So this probably would be the screen that you see after you finish downloading and installing the Visual Studio Code. So this is the screen you saw, and then the thing that you want to do before you try to handle any of the file or folder, the first thing would be to click on this extensions, this left side here, click on the extensions, and you will see some of these extensions available showed up here. The PyLens is the one that we want to install, and the other one is this Jupyter. Both of these are good in the sense that this PyLens will help us, give us these kind of intelligent suggestions, and also it will highlight things such as you have any of the possible variables not being declared, and the indentation is not right, and so on. They will all show up. And this Jupyter, you click on that to install. This will allow you to work with the Jupyter notebook. Okay, so click on both of them and install it. Okay, so those are for installing the necessary extensions. So these two are good enough. After finish installation, you are ready to run. Once you're done with this extension, then the next thing is to start a new file. In my case, say if I click on this one, it will tell me to choose which file. Python file will need to run the entire file, and Jupyter Notebook, on the other hand, could run block by block. So while you are trying to test some code, always try to use Jupyter Notebook. That's much more convenient than the entire Python code to run at the same time. So here, I'm opening this Jupyter notebook, and what I wanted to do, for example, I could just type something and start it to run. So if I type something to run, then this little triangle here is to execute the code. For example, if I try to run import a library, in R, you use the library and the package name. And in Python, it would be the import command and then the package name. Sometimes the package name is too long and you don't want to type that all the time later on. Instead, you would simply just, for example, I would do the NumPy, and I would say as NP, just so that later on, when I need the functions in this NumPy, I could just use NP dot with the function name. Okay, so this is to import that. And then let's say, suppose I want to I want to use the pi. This is 3.14. The number, to use that pi, let me specify it's the np.pi. np.pi. Let me see. I want to see whether this value is correct or not. Let me run it. In your case, yes, when you specify you want to run, it will first ask you which environment do you want to run it. Choose the Python environment, and after Python environment, you also need to choose which version of the Python. So in this case, I have the 3.11 and 3.94. I will use the 3.11 that we installed. And let me try to see. Okay, so right now it's running cell requires the Pi kernel package. So this one you will need to install it. Click on install. That will install the IPY kernel. After this one will take some time. Just wait a little bit until it's completed. Afterward, this will show up as the triangle again. You will be ready to execute that. Okay, just wait a little bit while it's ready. Okay. It's still trying to install. And when you need to add another chunk of the code or the markdown file, for example, if I want to describe something rather than the code, you put your cursor around the middle bottom of the previous cell, and then you can select it to have a new code or a new markdown. Say, I'm going to write a markdown, and this markdown was just like in R. For example, if I do pound, that means it will tell me that here is using a different font size, a bigger font size. Try with cell coding. Okay. So this is just like a title, boldface title. And if I click stop, oh, okay, sorry. Because this was still trying to install this IPY kernel, so it's not ready yet. And so that part is the markdown. And this one, if I wanted the new cell, I could put in new one. And then this new one, let's say, suppose we want to do calculate the area of like R equals 20, and we want the okay. So for this one, it shows no module NumPy available. This is because when I downloaded the Python 3.11, I do not really have the NumPy package installed. So to install the package, you will have to go to the command line again. But in this case, use the administrator, right? So instead of directly with the CMD, I would recommend that you go to this search window and do the CMD here, and the command prompt will come up. Oh, sorry, I should not be doing that. Instead, here the CMD, instead of directly click on that, you use the right click, and then you click on the run as an administrator. And then you put in the password for the administrator account. Most of you, I believe yourself is the administrator. So in this case, here I'm in the screen. If you are the administrator, I mean, like this one, I'm running as administrator. It shows C Windows System 32. If not as administrator, then it will show my local personal folder. Okay, in this case, I want to install the NumPy. So to do that, you use the pip install and then the NumPy, NUMPY. It will try to install the NumPy package in this computer. Okay. In my case, this one, it says that the requirement already satisfied. That means it has been installed, but it was in the 3.9, that version. Okay, as you have already seen here, with different versions, your computer is getting confused. Try to use just one version rather than two versions. Okay, so that's this installation package. You always use the pip install with the name of the package to install, but sometimes you might need to add additional parameter. This additional parameter, including like such as update, -u for update. Generally, it is a good idea to try to search, for example, install NumPy on your browser so that it will give you a command just in case if some additional parameters needed in your pip install command. So back to this one, because I have this mixed version, I'm kind of having trouble. And here I need to change my Python environment or otherwise handle the different version conflict. So let me go back to the code here. Instead of using this Python, I should be using select. Okay, this is just to select. Instead, if I run it again, it will still tell me that NumPy is not available because it's dealing with the 3.11 version rather than the 3.9 that has the installation went in there. So in the local computer, when you have the different versions, generally we have this kind of trouble. You will need to uninstall the ones that's already there and then reinstall the new one. I don't want to do that for my computer because I still want to use my 3.9. A lot of the packages were installed there. Okay. So also for this kind of reason, it's easier to work with the Colab. But this is also, it's not getting familiar with this VS Code is not a bad idea in the sense that someday you will feel that you need this kind of local environment rather than using the Colab. Okay, so here we are ready for the next part. Say if you have your package installed and also the VS Code successfully installed, and then you can run the cell. And if it's successfully executed, you see this check mark. Otherwise, you will see those red colored like errors. Again, this output is always right below the cell. You can delete the output, like just now I deleted, say here, this was the one that has the error code. And sometimes your process might have a lot of things produced during when you're trying to run the cell. And later on, you don't want to see all that big amount of like disruption. So you can just click on this triple dot and clear cell output. That'll make that not seen. And similarly for a cell, if you want to delete it, while your cursor is in that cell, you see the upper right hand side. There is this trash can here. You can just click on that to delete the cell. This VS Code is good in the sense that it will give you indication of error. For example, if I try to define a function, define a function, I would use def here, and then the name of the function. Let's say I'm going to define a square squared error. And this function, the name is squared error. And inside the parentheses, you would want to put in the variable names. You could have multiple variables in there. In my case, I'm going to just provide a vector x here, and this x is, I'm calling it a vector, but in Python, there is no vector. The different data types will be talked about it in the lecture note. Right now, I'm just putting a variable here, x and the true mean, okay, mu. And then afterward, you'll use the colon here to indicate that it's the start of the function. And then inside of here, you see it's dented. That is necessary. And inside of that, you do whatever the calculation, like x minus the mu, and calculate the square. The square is the star and the 2. That's the square. This means to the power, raised to the power of 2. If you want to raise to the power of 3, you use star and 3. Do not use the caret. The caret is not for power. Instead, it's for the binary operation. Okay, so this one computed the squared error, and I can define it, call it ERR, for example, and then I need to give this value as the returned value. So I'll just type a return and ERR. That'll give me this return value. You can see every time you do the return, it will go to a place that's indented, or in this case, after I tap the return, it tells you, it knows that I'm done with this function, so it directly goes all the way to the beginning. This kind of indentation is necessary and is required. And once in the same environment, like in this case is the function, the number of spaces here, indentation, that need to be identical. Otherwise, when you try to run the code later on, it will show up as error. What is critical is that you try to be consistent. In my case, both of these indentation was automatically created when I type the return button from the previous line. So this will use exactly the same mechanism. Sometimes you might have the code here and you type the space, and sometimes you tap the tab key. And sometimes you started the code somewhere else, for example, on the Colab, and then later on you want to run it on this VS Code. In that case, you might have a different amount of indentation. That will lead to errors. Okay. So once my definition is done, I could call the function. So simply type the name of the function. So S here, Q, it will start to show what I defined, like this one. If I put in the, let's say my X value, I'm going to put 3 here, and the mu put 0, mean 0. This should give me the squared error, which is 9. So you see the output here is 9. By the way, in the same cell, if you have multiple things that you wanted to print, like here, the square error for one and then square for another, in that case, you both of the lines like this, it will not show both. Instead, it will only show the last one. In order to show both, put the print line, print, okay? So the print here, and the next one also do print. This will print the result from both. So you will see the 9 and the 11.55 and so on. Okay, so let's suppose that in the middle of my writing for the function, I happen to use the variable that does not exist. Let's see, absolute error, ABS error. I'm going to define it as the variable minus the mean absolute value. See ADS, and I'm going to use y minus the mu. Let's see what happens. You could see the little wiggle under the y that's telling you that this y has not been defined. And by looking at that, you know you have an error here. Sometimes when the code gets very long, you may not easily see that you missed a variable's definition. And this kind of intelligence editing could help us. So in this one, I would correct it and then give me the calculation correctly. So when I return, I would return both the absolute error. Okay. Multiple variables being returned, you just need to use the comma to separate them. So let me run this again, and let's see what do I get. So you see 3 is the returned absolute error, and then the 3.4 as the returned 3.0 error for the second time when I call it. Okay, so that's this VS Code. It's convenient, and once you are used to it, you will like this more than other things. So the next one I will talk about is to use the Colab to handle the code. Okay. So how do we go to Colab? To go to the Colab, first you need to log into your Google Gmail account, and then okay, let me see where is my Gmail account is in here. So let me try to go there. And now if you are already inside of the Colab, sorry, your Gmail account, just type a Colab, C-O-L-A-B. And then click on any one of these, like Google Colab or here, welcome to Colab. And it's supposed to be directly linked to your account. Say, let's see, I'm going to do a new notebook because this, unless you are inside of your own account, otherwise it's not going to be saved to somewhere that you can access. So in this case, I have this untitled 3.ipynb. And you don't really see directly how it's linked to your own account. You can click on this one. This is like the folder. If you click on that, then this one, this little triangle thing is to mount the drive of your own Google account. So click on this mount drive. So back to where I was, okay. So you see, and this is the interface of the Colab. And if you have any of the local files in your Colab, in your Google Drive, then you click on this one to link that. So click on this one, it will permit this notebook to access the Google Drive. I'll do the connect. Once I do that, it's supposed to be able to access the files on my Google Drive. So now you see it shows the drive, and click on this arrow, you will see more content under the drive. Under the drive, typically the first thing is my drive, okay? And then under this one, you see there is other stuff that you might have created. So I have these different folders. Like for example, this is the folder that I created. And this untitled 3 is the current one that we are looking at, this empty blank one, okay? If you do not need to see this one, just click on this little crossing. You don't see the folder, but it's still there. Just click on this little folder button, it will show or disappear. And now back to this Colab is just like a Jupyter notebook. And this one right now default is like a code cell. For example, let's try to import the NumPy again. Import NumPy as NP. This also have these suggestions of the command. So if I try to run that, it will be able to execute. Let's see. The packages in the Colab, you also need to install it. Let's try to run it first just to see. Oh, in this case, it directly was there because in the past I have installed. Some of the packages that you have not installed, in that case, you will have to install it. When you try to install a package, you will need to do this exclamation mark and then pip install. For example, pandas. Previously, when we install in the local CMD window, we did not need the explanation mark. That's because in the CMD window, we are in the local computer folder. We're not in the Python environment. But here, we are inside of the Python environment. So we need to use the exclamation mark to tell that this command needs to be executed outside of the Python environment. So if I run this one, it will install the package from me. For most of the packages, you can install it pretty easily on the Jupyter Notebook from the Colab here, like this. In some case, okay, you might want to install a package, but you are using an older version of let's say you use your open a file, this Colab file, but this file was created by someone else using an older version of the Colab. In that case, so-called the older version, it's possible that inside of that, the code involve some older versions of the package, such as the pandas is one example. There are some older packages, and some people rely on some functionalities in the older package to use it. So if that's the case, you will have to again uninstall whatever package that's currently installed and install the older package. Okay. So for installing older package, you would need the package name, and also you need the version after that. But mostly try to search on the internet to install, for example, install Panda version 2.7, you will see how it's installing the older one. Like this is to consider the NumPy with version 1.21. Okay, so that's for installing the package. And then when you want to use it, here again in the middle, click on code or the text. In this case, let me do import of this package. Install pandas as a PD. Okay, the PD is just an abbreviation so that when I need it, I can just write the PD. For example, let me specify X is going to be a PD pandas panda data frame PD dot data frame. And for this data frame, I'm going to have two columns. One column is my little U, and this U, what do I have? Okay, I'm going to have U, and that U contains two values, 0 and 1, and then have another variable called V. The variable names are in quotation mark, and then here I have colon, and then afterward I have the values for that. And here I'm going to have 8 and 9, and let's see. I want to print this pandas PD data frame. Okay, let me see. So you see, this is my data frame, the U and the V, U column and the V column, and so on. So this is for the Colab. Most cases, it is more convenient to use this Colab because this is maintained by Google, and the system mostly is ready for just directly installing packages. If you're using a local computer, in the later part, for example, when we try to use the this fast text, for example, that's one of those that's try to convert the text into numerical values. If you try to install the fast text in your local computer, you could have significant problem because it requires to use the Visual Studio installation. And it's not just the simple one, it's the one that contains like many gigabyte, like 10 gigabyte. Okay, so but if you use the Colab, it does not have that problem. You can directly install the fast text without having all those difficulty. So this is the two of the platforms that I introduced here. One is the VS Code along with the Python in your local computer. And the second one is the Colab. I recommend to use the Colab as long as you can access internet. Another reason of using Colab is that Colab is using the computer that's provided by Google. On the other hand, when you use the Python and the VS Code, that's using your local computer. Depending on whether your local computer, your own computer is pretty new or not, the speed could be very significantly different. If you have a new, very fast computer with high RAM, in that case, using your own computer is fine. But if your computer is much older, in that case, the Colab would be more desirable, give you a better result. So, okay, that's all for the installation of the Python. So I'm going to quit this one and start another one soon.